There we go. Brilliant. So yeah, thank you for coming along. So this is our session on press. So obviously we've got about two or 2.5 weeks to go until Fringe kicks off, which is very exciting. So everyone's been asking a lot about marketing and press and all of that sort of stuff. So we thought we'd get some of our reviewers here and magazines that sort of come and cover Brighton Fringe so that they could give you their tips. So I think first, if we just go around and introduce ourselves, that'd be good. And then we're basically going to run it as sort of an open Q&A type of session, so that you can sort of ask your questions. I think because there is so many of us here, it might be best if people put questions in the chat and then I can read them out. Just because otherwise I think there'll be sort of too many people trying to talk at the same time and it will get confusing. And on that note as well, if you wouldn't mind popping yourselves on mute when you're not talking, just so that we don't get any echo or anything like that, that would be great. But yes, so to start off the introductions, I'm Maddie. I work in the Artists and Venues Services department at Brighton Fringe. So I often host these Fringe Academy sessions, and you'll also be able to find me at the Ledwood Centre during Fringe, where you can pick up your artist pass or venue pass for Brighton Fringe, or just come and chat to us about your show or anything that you want to talk about. So that's me, and then I'll just go around how I can see you on my screen. So Suzanne, did you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Suzanne Crosby. I write for Broadway Baby and for Brighton Source. I've also written for Brighton Argus in the past as well. I'm also an actor and a director and a writer, so I know sort of both sides of the Fringe, and I've actually got a show this Fringe as well. I also write. I do a lot of marketing with another hat on. I for a living. I teach marketing as well. So about press releases and stuff like that. All the press releases I've ever written have always got into a paper. So yeah. So which is I think is an achievement. I'll shut up now and move on.
I mean, yes, definitely an achievement. So well done on that. Sai, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Cy Hawkins. I mainly write for the British Comedy Guide these days, and I was a music journalist before that mainly, and I've written about everything else as well. But yeah, generally about comedy. If there's anyone on who I haven't responded to their press release, I do apologise. I didn't realise there'd be quite the volume of them that all sort of turned up at once. I started replying to the first few, and then I just too many now. So I basically yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So I write. So British Comedy Guide is probably. I think probably people have heard of Chorlton as well. I think we're the biggest comedy website, and I've also written for the Guardian. I used to write for the Argus many years ago. I used to live in Brighton. I don't actually live in Brighton anymore, but hoping to get down for the Fringe this year. But I've got a day job at the moment as well, so I'm kind of trying to work around that as well. But yes, so but yeah, I generally find the whole kind of publicity side of things very interesting. So from the journalistic side, I'm hoping to be helpful, but we'll see.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I've got Brian up next on my screen.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Brian Butler. I work for the online magazine Scene, which is based in Brighton. Used to be called G Scene, now not in print, just online. It's predominantly an LGBTQ plus magazine, but I cover theatre, film and cabaret for them, and not exclusively queer shows, but obviously we try and find them if we can. I've got a background in drama. I had a drama degree, but then became a journalist, and then a day job working for people I won't talk about. And I was in the amateur theatre for 43 years as a writer, actor, director. So looking forward again to the frightening array of stuff that's on in the Fringe.
Amazing. And then I've got CM and Adam next for me.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Adam. She's CM. We're on the part of the Brighton Seagull team. Well, Well, most of the Brighton
Yeah.
Oh,
The founders of the
Right,
Brighton
so-
Seagull.
yeah.
No one knows what the Brighton Seagull is.
So
We need to
it's
explain.
a Brighton's best local newspaper, and I won't hear anything else.
We run a local publication called the Brighton Seagull. We review Fringe every year. We get a team of writers. We try and cover as many shows as we can. We also run the Brighton Seagull Fringe Awards, where we give out awards to our favourite shows every year and try and get on as many posters as we can.
It's great. And then finally, I've got Paul, if you wouldn't mind saying something about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Paul Levy here. I'm the editor of Fringe Review. Fringe Review has been around since 2006. It's a practitioner publication, which means all of our writers aren't journalists. That's not to say that with any pride. It's just that we're a voice of directors, writers, actors, so people that come and see the work, make work, or have recently made work. We review in London around the year, currently quite a bit in Scotland, of course, Edinburgh as well. And Brighton is our proud home city. In fact, it was our hometown when we started. Now it's our home city. So we probably, I think last year, saw about 70 or 80 shows in the Fringe. Sometimes it goes over 100. The reviewers all choose what to see. We don't do star rating. And some of our reviews are longer than the shows.
Amazing. Cool. So that is our lovely host of Press Experts. I thought I would start us off with a few questions that we get asked quite regularly, but please do, if you've got anything, put it in the chat and I'll be monitoring this, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. We've got until 7, so we should hopefully get through everyone's queries. But yeah, I'll just ask a question and then whoever wants to answer it, you can all obviously chip in as well. I thought I would just start with a classic question of what would attract you to review a show? What would make you see a show on our website, or when you're going through our website, anything like that? What would jump out to you to say, oh yeah, this is a show I'm going to review? So anyone want to start?
I think we're happy to jump in and say some things that we are attracted to and not attracted to as much in shows. Unfortunately, I think, and this is maybe just like anyone can do a show at Brighton Fringe, which means there are so many shows at Brighton Fringe, which means that unfortunately a lot of the time the most important thing is the poster good? Like, is the poster in conveying? So like our favorite show last year was Bold Man Sings Rihanna, and it was this man's face photoshopped onto Rihanna's body, and the description was, have you ever seen a bold man sing Rihanna? And it was captivating. We were the only people there. He nearly wasn't going to do it. We had to beg him to still do the show. And like, that was such a perfect example of like, this is so quintessentially a Brighton Fringe, but like and like basic things like, is the poster, is everything spelt correctly? Is the formatting good? It doesn't have to be like a big fancy splashy, it just has to be like a well-made poster, even in Canva. And that, I think, for us is like such a big thing when we're looking for what to review.
It's just like standing out in the list, and I think doing a bit of research into what the sort of the current thing, the thing on the, if you sort of look at the listings, or if you're doing it before now, last year's listings, whatever it is, and looking for basically, is there like a format? Like if you look at comedy shows, for instance, you notice there's a lot of like the descriptions that end up being pretty similar. There's anywhere where there's like a laudatory quote from the performer's mother as like a funny little joke there. That is something you see about 5 million times in every listing, which is like, it is funny, but it is a joke that has been made, so it's possibly not the sort of like original little bit that it could come across as. So just like have a look and see what there is.
And I think the other thing is like, award-winning comedian from Place who has done these shows is like very impressive CV stuff, but it does also kind of all blur into one eventually. It doesn't really tell someone who's looking to engage with the show anything other than like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that they're good. It doesn't necessarily stand out.
Great.
I completely agree. The thing is, reviewers are just people. basically. So what attracts me to go and see any kind of theatre, because I review theatre, I just review theatre, that's it. Because I love theatre, I just absolutely adore it. So I will go and see anything that attracts me personally. So what I would really like to do, what I do is I religiously go through the Fringe and I plot my Fringe to go and see things. So I just plot through the days. So what I want, if somebody's trying to attract me, I want to know that because you get the massive long list of press and everything else. If you're a theatre production and you want a reviewer to review, then look for the people who say they review theatre, and then look for the publication that they go to. Is your stuff going to be good enough for a star rating? Because the star rating will follow you around if it's not good. So if for example, Broadway Baby, it's incredibly hard to get 5 stars in Broadway Baby. We give star ratings, but it's incredibly hard to get 5 stars. There's only a handful that's given out because our guidelines, and it's really tight. We get told off if we give out too many 5-star shows. It is our guidelines is to be a 5-star show, it has to be perfect. I'm not kidding. It's perfection. So if you want a Broadway Baby review, then be absolutely certain that your production is brilliant and almost perfect or perfect. If you want reviewers with just the description, then there's loads of there's loads of us that will do that. There's Brighton Source, there's FringeReview, there's all of us on the panel. But have a look at the reviewer on the list and have a look at what else they like. That's essential. Know your reviewer, because if I go and see something that's not my cup of tea, I'm going to be looking at the audience and go, well, they like it, but I don't, and I'll write a nice review because everyone else liked it. But if I didn't, I won't be singing its praises. So what tickles me, what really gets me is I love gritty stories. I love an interesting idea. I like stories basically, and I like them to be told really, really well. I like clever humor. If it's a comedy show, don't send me a press release because I only review theatre. There are people who do comedy and they do they review it really well. Know who you're sending your press release to. Basically, have a look at the list and look at what else they've done. I get absolutely spammed. I'm sure we all do. I get absolutely spammed with everybody wanting me to go and see their show. And I will look for the headline, the subject line. Is it what I would really, really like in the subject line, pretty please, are the dates of the show that whoever is wanting me to go and see. Because if I've already blocked that out in my theatre, if I've already booked that, then there's no point in reading anything else. So because I'm just not available, there's only one of me. I'm just not available. So what I'd really like is in the subject line, I'd like the headline, what it is, theatre, and the review request, the theatre, and the dates. That's what I would like personally. It's not a requirement for any of the places that I write for, but that's what I'd really like, because then I can just go, okay, I can't see. I get hundreds of emails. It's ridiculous. I go, I put them in a special folder, and I'm like, oh gosh. But if something intrigues me, if somebody's looked at what I review, because I've had a couple saying, I read your review of blah last year, I saw it as well, I completely agree with you. I'm going to read the rest of that press release. I'm going to read it and I'm going to think, okay, they know they know what I like and they're pitching to me directly. I will probably go and see that show. That's not an ego thing. That's targeted marketing. And targeted marketing works.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. Actually, I don't think any of the press releases I've had have been aimed at me. They've been part of a group, and I'm sure there's lots of journalists and lots of people on the list, and that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I always suggest, if I ever get asked to do something like this, or if I got asked for advice, to target your journalist and butter them up as well. I mean, we are desperate for praise. We are as desperate for affirmation as comedians are. or anyone else in the arts, really. So a lot of editors, I get stuff published and no one says anything about it, and it just goes online or gets published and no one said anything nice about it at all. So if someone comes to me and says just a little tiniest bit of research, Google my name, find me on find something I've written, say it's too late to do this now because I'm just telling everyone on here, but you can do it to other people who's not on this, and say, oh, I loved your piece on so and so, and by the way, are you at the Brighton Fringe this year? And maybe come back with put it in the same email. If you can do it on the second email, that really seems genuine. But yes, target your person, see what they are into. Problem certainly with comedy, and it's the same at the Brighton Fringe, the same at and I'm sure it's the same with a lot of the other shows, is that they're an hour long most of the time, or even longer sometimes, and that's a long commitment. So actually, I think I'd agree with Suzanne. I think make sure it's ready to go, really, I suppose. It's too late now for this, probably, if you booked your show in, but if it's not, do a half hour perhaps, which is less of a commitment. We can book it in easier. I don't know if that's even a thing you can do here, or do a split bill for comedy in particular. I know certainly at the Edinburgh Fringe, quite often people do a split bill. They do a half hour each till they've got a really excellent half hour. Then they build on that, and then eventually do your full hour, and then you're ready to go. And it's, as you say, you don't want to put yourself off by getting a bad review early on, and stick with it as well, obviously, is the thing, because even if this Fringe doesn't go well, certainly in comedy, it's great. I mean, one of the lovely things about stand-up and other types of comedy is that people get famous, or they get to where they want to be suddenly when they're 40 or 50, or sometimes. So that's always a nice thing. But I would that's the two things: target your audience, target your person, target particular journalists, and just try and do the best show. I know that sounds mad, but just kind of, it's too late for this Fringe. But next, if you're thinking about doing it next year, maybe do a half hour, maybe do a split bill, just to make sure that your show is as good as it can be, really.
I've got a few things to add. I agree with most of what's been said, really. Visuals, I think I agree, are very important for me, because we're online and we're online every day, and we're looking for visuals to break up the text on the social media. I look for clever headlines that engage me, so that I might not quite know what the thing is about. But I think you have to tell the story in the first sentence, because the first sentence might be all that we read. Because, as Suzanne said, there is just so much to scroll through online now. On the Fringe website, stuff is added, so you have to keep going back and looking again to see if new shows have been added. So if it doesn't grip me in the first kind of sentence, then I probably don't read it further. Don't send stuff twice, please. As a few people have said, we're inundated with stuff. I didn't, until a couple of years ago, when they said they were going to release our names to everybody, I didn't kind of realize just what that meant in terms of the number of emails, and it's very difficult to keep on top of. So please don't send things twice. Don't expect a response either. I think some people expect us to go back to them. We've got a system for booking our tickets. So loads of emails I read this morning said, oh, please contact me and I'll sort you a comp out and all that kind of thing. You don't need to do any of that, because it's all on Eventatron. So we can get our tickets. I'm very arbitrary and very quirky about what I pick. I'm allowed to choose anything. As I said at the beginning, it's basically a queer magazine, but I'm looking for other stuff as well. I'm certainly looking for anything that's got a link to Brighton, because our biggest audience, although we're national, biggest audience is in Brighton. I'm looking for anything to do with musical theatre, because that's just an interest of mine. I agree with somebody who was talking about awards. I mean, if you won a Fringe award at Edinburgh, I mean, for God's sake, say so. I've got one slight bugbear, and I don't know what other people think about this. I've noticed this year quite a lot of shows say work in progress. Now, I think that's a two-edged sword, because that kind of says to me it's half baked, it's half thought through. and I then have to apply a different set of judgments to that. So in a way, to me, it's a bit wrong. It's a bit apologetic. If people are paying, it should be a show. I agree that stuff can be in development, but I'm just not quite sure why people put work in progress as if it's a kind of apology. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I don't review work in progress shows, so
No, neither do I.
No,
I won't go to a work in progress. That's what scratch nights are for.
It's a turn up.
But I love going to work in progress shows, but I wouldn't review them because it's, because that seems unfair on the artist. So if you
we'll go to a work in progress if it's on the portal. Like our mentality is very much, if we have got a press ticket for a show, we will review it. The problem comes if like we've seen some shows that are ostensibly fully baked that seem like work in progress shows. Last year we saw James Danielewski's Rainbow Trout, which he said was a work in progress, and it was one of the best shows we've seen. It was so polished, so well put together. Likewise, I have seen some performers this year saying that their show is a work in progress, and they have done it for the last 3 Fringes. And I think at some point, stop calling it a work in progress, especially when every time it's the same show.
Oh, hang on. That's what's happening there.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you there, Si. I didn't
That's right.
move names about. That was great. Thank you for that. We've had, in the meantime, quite a lot of questions around press releases. So I'll try and summarise. I know a few people have replied. So just to note, in case people didn't see, there was a question around, should a press release be in the copy of an email rather than attached? And Suzanne said yes, which I think is the general consensus, that it's much easier if it's already in the email rather than someone having to click an attachment as well. As you say, you'll get inundated, so it's so much better if it can be that second shorter.
As well, like you want to have as few barriers between press release and someone reading it as possible. If there is an attachment, I'm so much less likely to click on it.
So we have had a few questions about press release. I'll say them all. And obviously, if you do forget any that I've said, they're in the chat, or I can refresh you. Just answer what calls out to you. But we firstly had what makes a compelling press release, and that was sort of, someone had mentioned you, Suzanne, obviously because yours has had 100% hit rate, and what should go in the subject line, which I feel like you kind of covered with the dates and stuff. Someone also said if there was any feedback for press releases specifically for children's shows. And then there was a question on how long an email should be with a press release attached, but obviously, like we've said, it's probably better to just have the email as the press release. And then the other question was just sort of general do's and don'ts for a press review and how to write one for a beginner. So sorry, that was a lot of words. So basically, beginner's tips on writing a press release, what should go in the subject line, what makes a compelling press release, and any tips for children's shows specifically.
Can I just say that the press release you sent to a reviewer, the subject line and everything in that will be slightly different to something you want to get published. So if you want somebody to review it, then you want a review request in the subject line, and you want the date, the name of the show, and the dates of the show. That's what I personally would like. I can't speak for everyone, but that's what I would like, because that helps me filter things out. Because if I get tons and tons and tons and hundreds of them, if you want to get something in a paper or online or whatever, then you need to put press release for the show and the dates and Brighton Fringe in the subject line. They're slightly different because they're asking 2 different things. In the press release itself, what I really like is an introduction to just say the type of stuff that you would put on the flyer, so or the poster, sort of just the introduction. Because if I read that and say this show isn't for me, I can stop reading and move on to the next 1 out of 200 or whatever. And then if it does interest me, then I will read more. And what I would personally really like is then the what the story is. So basically, I like to know. I don't mean spoilers. I just mean tell me more about it. is this a story that's going to interest me? Why have you created it? And then a bit about the company. And then I think, okay. And then at the bottom, I want the dates again. I just can't stress enough. I want the dates. You wouldn't believe the amount of press releases I get without any dates in at all. And I think if I'm going to have to go online to have to look it up, I'm just not going to bother. I've got too many emails. And then the dates and the venue. So if this is all Fringe, then the dates and the venue at the bottom, so I know where I'm going. Because sometimes I could see 3 shows in an evening, depending on where it is. If they're all in the same place, I could go, like just 3-hour shows. But the other thing is, we as reviewers, I'm sure everyone will agree, we have to be picky, because it takes longer to write the review than it does to go and see the show. So we have to be picky about our time. So that's what gets me about press releases, and that's how I write my press releases, to actually to get people to come and see them.
A couple of things I would add. I'm probably a bit unusual in that I write previews as well. So yesterday I previewed 15 shows from the Fringe. Next week I'll preview another 15 or 20. I may not go and see all of those, but they're ones that I just think are interesting to look at as a taster. Another thing that has really annoyed me in previous years, which causes work, because most shows don't have a program of any kind. For God's sake, tell us who's in it. Give us the cast and the characters, because so many times I've had to try and get hold of somebody after that hour-long show. And of course, there's a 15-minute turnaround quite often, and the next show's coming in. And you have to kind of run backstage sometimes and say, well, who was in your show? I mean, obviously, it's difficult if there are 30 or 40, if I go see the Lady Boys of Bangkok, I can't kind of name them all. But if it's a one-hander or a two-hander or a three-hander or something, put it in the flyer, put it in the press notice, but tell me who's in it and who the director is and who the author is. Because I use all those things in the review, because they're tags in, as you know, in the social media. They make people go and look at stuff. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree.
Yeah, I think press releases. Yeah, I tend to agree with Suzanne. I think in terms of a short bit at the, I think of the sort of professional press releases I get. It's a short bit, quite often a direct email to me, and then the press release is underneath, and it's a well-written press release. Some of it's in bold. It's like proper. Also, one thing, and I would agree with our Seagull panelists about, they were talking about good posters, and actually with me, I preview a lot during the year. I preview more than I review, and it's usually doing Q&As. And you get to the point of getting interviewed and getting Q&As and getting features about you. Just get some photos done. Get some decent photos, because we can't do a Q&A with someone unless I've got a good photo I can put at the top. And yeah, absolutely. When you're going, certainly if you're going through the Edinburgh Fringe guide, you're literally, I'll try and get the physical guide and I'll flick through it and look at, and it's a bit like that thing they say about, I know, sorry, this is off the subject of press releases slightly, but it just struck me. It's a bit like that thing they say about job interviews, and they throw away all the ones with the orange paper or whatever, or that's not on white paper, It's a bit like that. You can go through, and anything that's not got a good photo or a good looks really amateur, because again, you've got to sit there for an hour, and you don't want to sit there after 5 minutes and go, oh no. But yeah, the other thing is also get good proper links. Like, make sure you get your links right. Check with people if the links work. So I got one today that had a LinkedIn link as the link for, this is the person in this thing, and it was a LinkedIn link, and my LinkedIn is in hibernation, so I can't look at. I click on the link, and it's a LinkedIn page that I can't really look at properly. And I don't. It might be the same with Facebook sometimes, and some other links. So make sure it's a link that everyone can see. You click on a link to the person in the show, and you can't read the page, then that's not really helping. So yeah, things like that. I mean, they're fairly simple things sometimes, but it really, again, you don't want to be, you don't want to come across. The press release needs to read well and be quite succinct, and especially with comedy, because if the press release reads badly, then you just get the impression the show probably will be as well. So it is important.
Brilliant. Was that everyone's advice on press releases for now?
Yeah, photos in the email as well. So photos as attachments, that's fine, but not the press release.
I was
Because
just going to throw in just a comment about not all reviewers, but reviewers that are very active on various social media channels quite a lot, tweet, particularly during the Fringe. Others are using other stuff, including TikTok, responding directly to TikTok. So we've got lots of good advice here from people that are so experienced. There's such a lot of experience on this call of people that are very seasoned reviewers, and that's coming across. I guess I'm well aware in Edinburgh, for example, if you wanted to have a chance of a review from, I always forget her name, Lynn Gardner, she does adapt her schedule slightly from direct tweets. And certainly some of our reviewers will pick up a show having been tweeted an hour before and it's in their schedule. So a well-written tweet doesn't even have to be a direct message with an image, just like people here were saying. That can also work. So it's not either or, but sometimes the first instance that might generate a much more personal email, like please email me some stuff, is on proper, truthful, authentic, direct, and the word well-targeted use of other media other than just email.
And I think, honestly, I know it takes longer, but I'm way more likely to get. Someone emailed me last year and she was like, you went to see this person's show, you reviewed this person's show, so I think you would like my show for these reasons. She did then go on to call me eccentric. I'm not sure I appreciated that. But
That's not inaccurate.
It's not inaccurate. I didn't appreciate that. But if you can say, you wrote this review, I think you would like my show for these reasons because I have a similar style of comedy, or this theatre show is like this way, then even the fact that you have implied that you have read something I've written puts you way higher up in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, completely agree.
We got a question just quickly before moving on from press releases for now. If people are sending it in the body of the email, would you also want it attached in case you wanted to save it in a file or send it on at all, or is it fine just as the email?
There's no problem. Yeah, I think do both, basically. There's no reason not to have it as a separate attachment as well. Yeah, I think generally certainly the comedy ones I get, generally there's a short email quite often to me. The main body is in the email, but then it's also an attachment with the press release as a separate thing. Yeah, so there's no reason not to do both, really.
Can I just add one thing? If you're writing to a reviewer with a press release, this is going to sound bonkers, but please get the name of the reviewer right that you're writing to, because the amount of things that I get saying, dear Katie team, or dear Derek, or whatever, and I'm thinking, if you can't be bothered to find out who you're writing to, I'm just going to delete this. I'm sorry. It's not an ego thing. It's just, if that's the level of detail that you're applying to your show, then your show is not going to be any good in my mind. So I'm just going to delete it.
So many emails that we get say, dear Seagull team. And I'm like, that's fine. But our website, if you Google the Brighton Seagull, you might get Albion first sometimes, but then you'll probably get us. It's not hard to find. And a good website has you can, if you can't find the name of the team, you can at least find past reviews and say hi, is this writer available? It shows some effort has been put in, which is more appreciated than none.
I say, yeah, with some of us, it genuinely is an ego thing. And it's it basically, as I say, we some of us are just, we will take that, however clearly shallow and manipulative it is, we will take it because we need it. So give us a bit of praise, and that gets logged, and then just gives us it just makes us positive towards what you're doing, And if, as I say, put it in the same email, if you've got the balls to then put to them and go, yeah, are you going to Fringe, or are you reviewing stuff, and then follow up with a second email, a second response, and that really does seem like you genuinely meant the first bit. I know I'm reiterating this, but this is absolutely true. It's basically because as I say, we a lot of us are sort of frustrated performers ourselves, So if we get a little bit of just a nice little bit of find a bit of, don't even read the piece, just find a paragraph and find the best bit of that. And then that really looks like you've read it, This is,
if you're putting all work into us,
absolutely worth.
We'll marry you there, and then we'll give you 5 stars. We'll review every show you ever do.
Brilliant. So press releases and stroking egos, we've learned much about. Someone asked your view on, I mean, I'll sort of start with the fact that we tend to, when we're talking about people taking part in Brighton Fringe, because a lot of it is 1 or 2 person teams doing everything. It is very much you wear every hat when you're doing Fringe. We tend to tell people to come with 1 goal, maybe 2 if they sort of support each other, because it's a lot to manage as well as doing your show. So typically these would be bums on seats, you know, making profit, getting a review, winning an award, things like this that are all quite big goals that take a lot of time to achieve. So someone has asked, what's the panel's view on pushing for reviews versus punters, and said that they would obviously want a fuller audience, and reviews can help with that. So how would a reviewer feel about being in a smaller audience? Could it ruin sort of the vibe of the show, or potentially what you think of it?
Can I just come in there? Just a few kind of very gritty things. It'd be great to hear from the other reviewers whether you do this, but obviously the the Brighton Fringe landscape is more shows, I think, than in the past do a couple of days at the beginning of the Fringe and the end of the Fringe, which can create the Edinburgh effect. If you can get a reviewer in at the start, there's time for that review to settle. They can take days to write up, and then you can use it at the end. If you're just doing 3 nights, you need to think very carefully about why you want a reviewer in, because I think, as Suzanne pointed out, that creates a footprint digitally. And so do you want it sitting there for your onward journey? Because it won't make a difference, probably with most people, to ticket sales if you're only doing 2 nights, 1 night or 3 nights. The review won't be up in time, and it comes out several days later. But I don't know if any reviewers here, what we've tried to do more and more, and it helps that Fringe reviewers are even older than Ivor, who's on the call. They're all in their 70s and 80s. And so that means they're really digitally connected, because they're like Generation A is old. And so they all tweet, and our reviewers literally come out of a show and are tweeting a line from the review they're about to write to try and get the oomph to a good bit of work. So just try and encourage that you're tweeting, try and encourage reviewers if they do it, and find out who is doing it. You can just check to see if they're active or not. If you want quick action, then just see if you could get that quote, literally that pull quote, the night of your show, if it's possible. And the way you do that is you contact them on social media and say, thank you so much for coming. And you might well get a comment back. Lynn Gardner does that again up in Edinburgh. Go, really enjoyed it, review to follow. And really enjoyed it can become a pull quote that makes a difference possibly to ticket sales the next day. So there is a skill set that's unique to Brighton. Brighton does not put everybody through the horrendous experience of having to play the whole month. You get a sense of freshness, you're in, you're out, you move on, and reviews need to serve that process, not the idea that you need reviews to sell ticket sales, because it's unlikely to happen unless you're on social media. I try
to tweet the same day. I don't say X, I still say tweet, sorry. I try to tweet the same day as I've seen a show, exactly as Paul has said, with just one line saying, fantastic show. Obviously, if it's not fantastic, I probably won't tweet. And I think that probably helps. I don't think we're there to sell tickets. I mean, obviously, it does do that sometimes, but the runs are so short. I think mostly, if I'm seeing one night shows, then obviously it's been and gone, but it's useful for future marketing, I guess, to have the review. On the size of audiences, I mean, I've negotiated a couple of times with performers who came up and said, do you really want me to play this just to you? And I'm sitting there writing notes. And sometimes they've said, come back tomorrow. And if I can do that, I appreciate that. And I respect their judgment that they don't want to play to one person. Sometimes you're playing to 3 or 4 people and it works really, really well. And sometimes you can get big audiences who are totally silent. So I don't have a feeling, but always it is slightly awkward if you're the only person there. It is, and you keep looking at your watch saying, God, I hope somebody else, turns up. Because they either have to keep eye contact totally with you, or they have to avoid eye contact totally with you. And it is. I feel really, bad for them if I'm the only person in the room. I really do, but I don't see. That's the Fringe, isn't it? I always think when people say, "Did you see something that was terrible?" and you say, "Yeah, but I only wasted an hour of my life," and I can live with that.
I will say, like, as someone who has a show this Fringe myself with some friends, I have a lot of respect for a performer who will still do a show to what is a lot of the time just me and Adam sat there, one of us with a notebook. I think it really does change the dynamic of a show. But some of our favorite shows have been just us and the comedian.
Sometimes it can be very fun. I went to a show that was like a bit of character comedy about professional wrestling last year, and as a pro wrestling fan, they were able to make all of the most obscure jokes that a general audience wouldn't have got at all. Got a glowing review out of that one for me. But
I think the other thing I will say is, like, don't bank on reviews directly translating to ticket sales, because we have seen shows where we've written a fair review, but we have absolutely not enjoyed the show at all, and we have tried to be as fair as possible. And so sometimes those performers have gone on to say that that they've had sold out rooms the next night, or that they've had loads of people come in who've really enjoyed it, just because like a reviewer hasn't necessarily gotten out of it what you wanted them to, doesn't mean that an audience won't. But then also, just because someone has come to review the show, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to like it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to encourage more people to go. But then conversely, a reviewer not liking something might then also encourage someone to go, because they might want to see I don't know if
it's not a linear relationship.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. I mean, it's quite funny actually. You get to the end of a Fringe, and whichever Fringe it is, and it's quite often the terrible shows, or the real car crash events, or the no one was there ones, are the ones you talk about. And when you were certainly with a group of people, they're the things you remember, And I've been in some really interesting, bizarre things, and looked at a whole family in the audience and gone, that's what they're talking about this Christmas over dinner, and every Christmas for the rest of their lives they're going to talk about this show, however much of a disaster it might have been. But I think it's interesting. I mean, I've seen even really quite big acts in Edinburgh, kind of go get on Twitter and go just generally do a big call out and go, can I get everyone into the show? This particular show, friends,
recording in progress.
Sorry. Basically, sort of everyone they could possibly get into the show, because they've got a reviewer in, an important reviewer in, even if they're quite a well-known act. So I think, as Maddie was saying, I think it's, as the question was saying, is it reviewers versus audience? And if you're looking at paid audience, do you just want to target it towards, you've got to get this reviewer in? I don't really know. If we book a review in, presumably the act will know about that, will they? If we book a show to review it.
Yeah, so I think you should be able to see in your ticket sales, you can see like who's booked a ticket, and I think press will come under like the comp section. So I don't know if it always shares your info because of like GDPR if you've not opted into that, but it should say like obviously a comp, and obviously they'll know if they've not issued that, then assumedly it's sort of press or arts industry.
They usually say the name and the where you're reviewing from. That usually shows up in the list. Just to add as well, I'll go and see something, even if it's just me in the audience. What I do feel bad about is that sometimes I've been like one of four. I was one of four at Edinburgh once, and it was awful. And I felt so bad because they came up to me at the end and said, like, oh, how was it? Did you enjoy it? And I was like, I'm trying to be nice. And I really, because from a performer perspective, I really appreciate how much effort and how much it takes to actually put something on. I completely appreciate that. And I go to something because I really want to like it. I really want to like something. I don't want to dislike it. And I will write, like CM and Adam said, I will write a fair review based on everybody around me as well as what I think. But you can't. Not everything is good. I've seen some stunning, outstanding things that I really wasn't expecting, and Some of those have been absolutely audience packed, and some of them have just been me and 3 other people. And I don't mind. I just think that I'm going to put people off, so I try not to sit in the front with my notebook. So if I'm one of 4 people there and they see I've got a notebook, then I feel like I'm going to put them off. So I try and be as subtle as possible. But yeah, I will always see a show if I've asked for a press ticket. I will always turn up.
Yeah, I was going to add, obviously, like you all say, sort of, it's very unlikely that reviews, if you're just doing a short run, will be out in time and stuff like that. But Paul mentioned the tip of doing sort of video box reviews where you just get audience members on their way out to just do a short, like 5-second review of what they thought. You can either have some questions prepared. What was your favourite part of the show? Did anything surprise you? Anything like that? What would you tell someone thinking of coming to see the show? Or you can just ask them for, like, do you mind just saying a few words about it? And then you can, that works really well. One, for sort of, obviously it's coming from an audience member, so that might make it easier for an audience member to engage with. And it also gives you video content, which is sort of what I think is one of the key selling points for a Fringe show, because there's so many, is if you can see like some sort of video content about the show or something like that, put it on social media, anything like that. It allows you to make a very short little like clip of what people are saying about it, which will then be an easier way for people to engage with it rather than having to read like show copy or anything like that. I just quickly wanted to add or ask, sorry, Philippa's asked where you mentioned about links, Suzanne, just about, obviously a lot of people will want to link to something when they're sending a review. Philippa's sending like a Google Drive which has like press release and photos and info about the show. Would that be better to attach or not? Will that make it land in spam, or is it a bit of a...
It's possible. It depends. It depends. Everyone's on a different email system, so it depends. I mean, things have gone into spam if they've got links in the body and there's nothing else to explain it. For example, if somebody says press release attached and with loads of links, then that's likely to filter into spam. That's what I've found when I've gone looking. But if you, yeah, I mean, obviously I would like links as well, but if I'm interested enough, if I've read the body of the email with all the press release in, if you've attached the press release as well, you can put the links in that, and then I can use that, then we can use that instead, because that shortcut, that will stop something from going into spam.
Would it be worth noting, like in the email, something like links attached in the press release or something, so that you do click into?
Yeah, absolutely, could be, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. We've had another question. I'm aware we've got sort of just under 10 minutes left, but we've had another question about if a reviewer has positively reviewed a previous production, would it be worth reminding them of that and sort of inviting them along again?
Yes. Short answer, yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
I agree with that. I think that one slight problem is sometimes people bring the same show back, and I have reviewed shows again the following year, but I'm not entirely likely to. So I think that's always quite difficult. If they bring exactly the same show back in exactly the same format, why would I review it again 12 months later? But it doesn't often happen.
Just a question about, should press release be in the title of the email, or would you just want the dates and the show name? Just the date
for a review. If you want to attract a reviewer, then it doesn't need to say press release. It just says review requested. I mean, what are you asking for? Do you want a review? In that case, put it in the subject line. Review requested, title, date, and the title of the show and the dates.
I agree. I think the headline in the email should just be, request to review. Yeah, and then I know that's what it is.
Brilliant. We've also just had someone say, if they've already sent requests before this session, but obviously now there's been quite a lot of advice of like how to format it better or what to put in the title, is it worth sending a press release again, or will that then feel like spam to reviewers, like you said, not to send twice?
I know people who've invented PRs before. done a new started a new Gmail account, and because I know this happens quite a lot with real PRs where they suddenly go, I've just jumped on this Axe Soho Theatre run, because presumably it hadn't sold that well, or I'm saying I know that happened before, where suddenly you get it from a different person, and then suddenly this looks like quite a professional press release from someone. So I mean, you could always do that, but again, I wouldn't don't say and tell anyone I said that.
Have a good website if you're going to do that.
I would say that the ideal thing for Brighton is we were getting press releases and we were glad to get them in January. And that is they're getting you on the radar, and it plants just a thought, a memory. It's just there. Then it's really, should we get an updated one in March just to say, now the show's ready, here are some rehearsal shots. It's informative. We might be able to use that for preview material. We get to about now, and it is absolutely okay to now say, this is the big announcement. This is the show that's coming next month. And it can be, if you've got a news story, that you can use that as a memory jogger. So I would say from January we've had 4, and that's not a problem. What you don't want is exactly the same press release that looks like it's been lazily just resent. It's about you talking about your work in a way that infects the reviewer with your enthusiasm in an authentic way.
Yeah, you could always do something else. You could do, because I used to be a music journalist. I mean, in the old days, I mean, not sure it really works so much in comedy and theatre, but you'd have a launch party and you'd invite people, and there would be beer, and that was how you would invite music journalists to a thing. Not sure it happens to work so well in theatre and comedy and other things at the Fringe, but you could always do something more interesting. Think outside the box. Have a launch event on the beach. Do something. This is now happening. That's a news story. If you could get a news story out of it, like someone doing something really interesting, you might get above reviewers. You might even get, some coverage in the front end of the Argus or somewhere else. Think outside the box and just do something interesting to launch the show that relates to the show in some way, or even doesn't. Then that's, it's worth thinking outside the box on these things sometimes as well.
If somebody wants to. It's an interesting question. You asked a really interesting question. Do we want another press release? If it's changed significantly with the advice that we've all given here, then I'd love it if I suddenly got an influx of emails with the correct subject in the title, review request, and the name of the show and the date. I'd be like, yay, somebody listened, hooray. I'd be so happy. So yeah, no, by all means, I personally would like that.
Rest assured, you're getting them now.
Brilliant. Well, it's pretty much coming up to 7 now, so I just thought I would ask if there's any closing thoughts from any of our panel members before we call it a day.
I think, for something that I think is a sort of uniting thread through a lot of what people have said is sort of respecting reviewers' time. I know it's difficult to do this without sort of putting it on us, because obviously the actors are the stars here, but we are just people. For some of us, this isn't our day job. It's something that we do for fun, and we've only got so much time. So if we're if you just use the sort of if you before you do something and you think, does this feel like this is respecting this person's time? Is there a way I can do this in a way that makes their life a little bit easier? And that's more likely to go smoothly for you than if which isn't to say that you're not doing that if you don't think to do it, if you see what I mean, but just more it's a conscious principle to be guided by, I suppose.
And I think sometimes it's I get hundreds. I get my emails on Monday, and there are hundreds and hundreds of emails in there. I don't know where they all come from, and it's more important to have a clean, well-constructed, neat press release than to do something that stands out and is flashy. If you have included all of the things, if you have named someone who actually works in the team, then that is going to go so much further than giving us your press release on a cake. Although if you do give us your press release on a cake,
I'm going to say that if there's cake involved, we're going to that show.
We'll go to the show. Yeah.
I might just throw one quick thing in.
Go on, Paul.
Sorry, it's really quick. It was just seeing some people on this call too. I'm really glad to see the Brighton Fringe landscape evolving. We've got 2 free Fringe festivals down here as well. like in Edinburgh, sometimes the theatre doesn't get noticed in the Free Fringe. There is a little bit of theatre in the Fringe programme in the Free Fringe, but there's a lot of comedy that's also storytelling, not just gag telling. So I just ask all the reviewers here, including my own review team and everybody else, to remember the Free Fringe. That's the grassroots bit, and let's make sure we cover them as well.
I agree entirely. I think I would just add two things. One is we all love performance. You know, we're there because we love the theatre, or we love comedy, or we love, you know, it's not a penance. Sometimes it might slightly feel like that on a wet Monday afternoon, but we're there because we love it. And I always remember the words of my late now editor, James Ledward, who said, "Be honest, but be fair." And I always think that's a bit of a tightrope, but I always try to be honest and fair. And I hope people kind of understand that when they read what we write. We're doing this because we love the medium. You know, it's not because I saw some chat comments saying that we love ourselves. Well, maybe, but that's not why I do it. It's because I love to see live performers.
Absolutely. And when I review, rather than if I just go and see a show, if I review, I pay incredible amount of attention to it. I mean, it's exhausting because I want to notice everything. I want to take everything into account when I write it, because I feel as a performer myself, and as a writer myself, and as a director myself, I want to respect everything that's gone into making that production. And I go because I love theatre, and I love writing about theatre, and I love waxing lyrical about brilliant things I've seen. And Brighton is amazing. Brighton is brilliant, and I can't wait for this Fringe. It's going to be so exciting. It's just, I want to be sure I've picked the right things to go and see. So any help that you can give us reviewers to help us pick the right things that will spark our interest and get a brilliant review written for you, then brilliant.
And you know, and something, you might not always get great reviews, and sometimes, but you know, not all reviewers are great. Sometimes people go to the wrong thing, or they're in a bad mood, or they're, you know, so don't take any notice of, you know, if it's constructive criticism, take notice of it, and that's useful. I mean, a lot of people, you know, a lot of reviewers are idiots, so don't worry about us too much.
Amazing. Well, thank you all. This has been a really brilliant session. It's great to have so many of you sort of giving a range of advice. Often the Fringe Academy sessions are just with one or two hosts. So it's been really lovely to have 5 of you here. Well, 6 of you actually. Sorry, five publications to give us sort of tips and tricks for press and reviews. As I say, this has been recorded. So we usually get stuff up on the website the next day or the day after. So it'll be up by the end of the week, just on our website on the Fringe Academy page if you do want to watch it back. And if you had any specific questions, a few of the panel members put their contact in here, but you can always contact us and we can contact them if you haven't managed to catch the information there, so we can get that info to you. But yes, thank you for coming along. This has been our most popular Fringe Academy session by far, which is lovely to see so many of your faces. And just to note that we've got a couple of sessions next week. Paul will be doing a session with Rhiannon, the Artisan Venue Services Manager, on flyering next week. And we're also doing a meeting other Fringe first timers, which will be online again. So if you want to sign up to either of those, please do. That's next Wednesday and Thursday. Otherwise, good luck. We're nearly in Fringe time. Looking forward to seeing all of you in the Artist Services Hub and coming to your shows. I will stop the recording now.